Hi, everyone. So my name is Benjamin Vicini. This is the Radical Civility Nickelodeon. And I'm at a party the other day. And parties, I talked about this in the first episode and in the other episode that I released. I have a really hard time at parties because it's this game of I want to ask people questions and I want to talk about really interesting things, but I still want to have friends afterwards. And so I try really hard to keep my mouth shut and to not talk too much. And the hardest thing about this is when somebody walks up to you and says, okay, so I have a question for you. What do you think about blank, right? What do you think about the impeachment? And so this hostess of ours said, what do you think about the impeachment? And I see my wife start to get nervous. She's mostly domesticated me by now. Okay. But it's a balance that we walk. And I try to make sure that I'm not, going overboard and talking too much, getting on my soapboxes at dinner parties. And so I answer quickly within about 30 seconds and then say, what do you think about it? I think I've done a really good job. I turn it back to the person. And the hostess says, well, that's great, but I feel like there's more that you want to say. And I start to sweat profusely, like, okay. And my wife is about to jump in and she turns to me and my wife, both of us, and she goes, no, it's okay. I'm putting in the nickels on purpose. I know what I'm getting myself into. And that's when I knew that I had a real good friend, right? That we had found our people. We had this great conversation and, she gave me a soapbox. She said, look, take 15 minutes, tell me everything you think about the impeachment, go. And all of the guests were very gracious and they smiled and they gave their own opinions. And I tried to shut up whenever I could to let other people talk. And it was a really fun time. Well, part of the reason why I'm talking about that is that this podcast is organized into two different podcasts each week. One is the microcast, which is like 5 minutes about civility, how to do it, how to be a good person, how to listen to other people, all those kinds of things. And then the other one is the Nickelodeon. And that's where somebody puts in a nickel, they ask me a question, and I try to answer it as best I can. And so that's what this one's going to be about. And boy, do I have a topic that I've been wanting to talk about. I'm excited about this one. The title of today's is called Motivated Scrutiny, but that's going to leave you not having any idea what I'm talking about for a minute. And that's on purpose because there's a spoiler. So I do want to talk about motivated scrutiny, but you'll have to dig a little bit. You won't have to dig at all, and you'll know in about 45 seconds. This, by the way, is the informal part of the episode where I just kind of like talk about where the idea came from and, shoot the breeze with you. And if I were a different kind of podcast, I'd be like, and that's why you should buy thingsfromthem.com. I've used them for 7 years. I don't actually do any of that, and I don't feel like advertising. So this is where I'm supposed to make an ask of you. So I'm going to ask this of you. Listen to this episode and then comment on it on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you happen to listen. Say something about it, whether you agree or disagree or have feedback, because this is still a really new podcast. And so you might think it's terrible or great or have feedback or, hey, you need to make better eye contact with the camera. I actually got that feedback. So I'm like trying to really look at the camera as I talk. And to my 3 podcast listeners, this is available on YouTube. So you can see me talking into a microphone, or you can listen on a podcast too. There is a serious point, though, that I want to make really quick, and that is a lot of podcasts, the currency for the podcast is likes and subscribes and views and all of those things. And let me be clear, I'm happy to have subscriptions. So go ahead and click the subscribe button. I'm happy to have likes. I prize interactions more because I get more from it. But my end goal, like my currency, is in ideas. So Tyler Cowen has a piece that I thought was very, very good about shelf life and ideas. And the basic premise is that the impact that we have is based on the ideas that we are able to foster and are able to make a difference in the world. And I find that really interesting. So today you're going to hear about this idea of motivated scrutiny and where it comes from and what I think it is. And I would love to see some of these things catch on, because I think as we start to identify them, we can do a little bit better. So anyway, with all of that being said, your ask for today is to find something you agree with or disagree with and comment on it. And with that, let's get to the episode. The episode is called Motivated Scrutiny. So I'd like to play a little game. I have here a set of statements about a certain prominent politician. I'd like to see if you can figure out who is being discussed. I'm taking this game, by the way, from an article in the Daily Beast, so I want to give credit where it's due. And it's a fabulous article, and I actually heard it discussed myself by Ben Domenech, so on the Federalist. So just want to throw out there that this is not my original idea, and they did a really good job of explaining this. So statement number 1. Chris Matthews deemed this man dangerous and scary. Statement 2. Ellen DeGeneres said, if you're a woman, you should be very, very scared. Statement 3. His opponent ran an ad against him portraying him as uniquely dangerous for women. Here's the text from a woman in the ad, quote, I've never felt this way before, but it's a scary time to be a woman, close quote. Statement 4. He was frequently called a bully, anti-immigrant, racist, stupid, and unfit to be president. Last one. In 2012, Paul Krugman called this man a charlatan, pathologically dishonest, and untrustworthy. He said this man doesn't even pretend to care about poor people and wants people to die so that the rich could get richer. This man is completely amoral, a dangerous fool, ignorant as well as uncaring. You know who they're talking about? Mitt Romney. So I first heard about this at the Federalist, and it was pretty breathtaking. Like it took the wind out of me for a second. And I started to think about a lot of different things. Actually, before I get into that, let me just remind everybody of where we find ourselves. So last time on the year 2020 of Nutsy, post-impeachment, there are plenty of sore losers and plenty of sore winners. Mitt Romney just gave an emotional and compelling speech on the Senate floor in which he announced that he would vote to remove the president from office. And some on the left have a newfound but grudging respect for the junior senator from Utah. As Stephen Colbert put it, finding a politician who does what he feels is right is a little like finding water in the desert. Now, I'm glad for this newfound respect. I'm happy about it. But I don't trust it. See, I'm old enough to remember Bill Maher mocking Romney's religion and the left-leaning crowds laughing along. I can remember Mike Huckabee calling him a not good enough Republican when what he really meant was a not like me enough Christian. And I can remember the voices on right and left happily taking up the criticisms that were sticking, even though they had nothing to say about Romney's religion, didn't care, or because even though they had nothing to do with Huckabee's religion or politics. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that the flip-flopper label was originally lobbed by a primary competitor of Romney's. I don't think it was a Democratic assault. I can remember people on the right and left seeing someone who by all accounts is squeaky clean and taking a second and a third and a fourth look, committed to finding a flaw if they only looked hard enough, and then proclaiming that his stance changes were clearly reflective of a man with no real integrity. And then they elected Donald Trump with nary a scan of the resume. Parenthetically, on the topic of irony, let me mention that Jerry Falwell Jr. also just told, I think it was this week, just told Mitt Romney to, quote, keep his religion in his personal life, close quote. Yes, that Jerry Falwell Jr. That scan of the resume that I was talking about before, that's scrutiny. And I just want to be clear. I think scrutiny is a good thing. We should definitely scrutinize our elected officials. But what I'm talking about today is motivated scrutiny, and it's a little bit different. And I need to delve just a little bit into behavioral psychology. I hope you already all know about this, but if you don't, it'll be a pretty quick review. So I put you and your ideological opposite person, arch nemesis, into an MRI. I give both of you a book of facts on an issue. Same book, and it's completely true. And you feel one way about it, and they feel the opposite way. And maybe it's guns, maybe it's abortion, maybe it's the environment, who knows? You know, pick an issue. And the book has all of the most recent research on the topic. And I stick you in the MRIs, hoping that you will improve your arguments and come out a little bit smarter. And the experiment finds that you both have better arguments as you leave, and neither of you change your mind. And the MRI will actually see that the logic centers are lighting up in your brain. You're seeing all of this stuff for the first time. You're getting really excited. But more importantly, you're fitting the facts into your pre-constructed view of how the world works. The facts are not going to change your mind. They're going to add to what you already thought was going on. We aren't looking for facts. We're looking to interpret facts in a way that justifies what we already believe. In other words, I'm not saying that people disliked Romney for bad reasons. I'm saying that they disliked Romney and then ran around trying to find the best reasons to justify their dislike. Now, this isn't an accusation. I do this too. We're all human. We all do this. This is a statement of fact. This is a research finding. And as an aside, if you're looking for evidence of a bias against a group, keep your eye peeled for motivated scrutiny. I'll look at the candidate I like and brush aside misgivings. But the guy on the other team, see, I heard he once did that thing in that year in that place with that bad person. And, I always suspected he was up to no good. I'm not normally one to prophesy, but after 2012, I had the deep feeling in my gut that this country was in trouble. I want to be clear that it wasn't because we elected President Obama. I disagree with him on a lot of things, particularly policy, but I find him respectable, honorable, decent. It was the way that the nice Mormon businessman from Utah was treated that made me really uncomfortable. If we treat even the squeakiest of squeaky clean types this way, then who can win? Only the not squeaky clean. I felt then, as I do now, that if we can't see anything good in our political opponents, then we're going to be condemned to elect the actually bad. Because, hey, at least they tell it like it is. I want you to consider this phrase. I've heard people say things like, yes, Trump probably slept with and paid off a prostitute, but Romney went from moderate to conservative. He's a traitor. Another way to think about it. I don't know who Jesus would vote for, but I know that for a supposedly perfect, sinless man, he sure was able to upset the establishment. And what were his great sins? Jesus ate with the sinners and publicans. And whether you believe he was divine or not, it should be a lesson to you about group psychology that such a tiny deviation so enraged the establishment of the time. But then maybe it wasn't the deviation. Maybe they had other reasons to be outraged and simply had to find a justification for that anger. It turns out that we too are excellent gnat strainers and equally prodigious camel swallowers. Motivated scrutiny. Those who hate Romney now but loved him before, and those who loved him before but hate him now, have yet to convince me that they've learned anything from their motivated scrutiny. The left in previous elections and the right now. They're not doing anything more than liking Mitt when Mitt is like me. When Mitt and I agree, you see, he's brave and principled and courageous. When we don't agree, he's a hypocrite and a virtue signaler. Well, I happen to have the most unpopular position of all, that the junior senator from Utah has been a good man the whole time. Calculating, maybe. Imperfect, obviously. And sometimes a little more stiff than was helpful for him politically. But fundamentally a good person who most people judged wrong. Fortunately, the answer to this mess is simple enough. Start to recognize the good in the other side. And I'd suggest that we start earlier rather than later. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you find it helpful. Radical Civility is written, produced, and edited by Benjamin Piccini. The views in Radical Civility are not necessarily the views of my employer, my religion, my family, or myself in the future when I am smarter and wiser.